Cece Payon, Monarch Magazine resident master chef, and your host for Culinary and Conversation, a live cooking experience where we create nutritious meals for your body and explore topics that nurture your mind. Conversations with some of today's top influencers, ranging from the world of politics, art, film, music, and more. February is a month that deals with matters of the heart, but I'm not talking about Valentine's Day. In this case, I'm talking about heart disease. Heart disease is the #1 killer of African American women. We must love ourselves and each other enough to do our part to inform and encourage all women of ways to achieve a healthy heart. So we are dedicating today's segment to the topic of heart disease and to increase the awareness surrounding such an important issue. We have invited the amazing women from the Links Incorporated 13 DMV chapters to this segment of Culinary and Conversation, a red dress brunch party, featuring a very special guest, National President of the Links Incorporated, Dr. Kimberly Jeffries Leonard. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show.
Hello, how are you?
I am wonderful. I am honored to have the illustrious Links ladies with us this afternoon and have the national president. I've said I've always been a Link admirer, so I am tickled pink to have so many of you with us today. And so we are going to, we're going to be cooking and talking, so feel free to interject and ask questions. The ladies asked me if they needed to be on mute. We're going to keep them on mute for a moment, and then we're going to bring them in. But I'm going to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself. And, we know that you are passionate about issues as they relate to African American women and heart disease. And so we're going to start with that. Today we are preparing 2 dishes, heart-healthy, nutrient-dense dishes that are plant-based. We are doing a tofu scramble and we are doing a chickpea scramble. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drain my tofu and put that aside so we can get talking. The reason I'm going to drain this is because tofu is always packed in water. When it's full of water, it has no flavor. If anybody has ever had bad tofu, they know what I'm talking about. So we're going to get rid of the water, and then we'll be ready to cook it later. So I'm going to do that. But Dr. Jeffries Leonard, please tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, Chef Cynthia, we're so glad to be here, and I'm so glad to be here with these illustrious women in the DMV cluster, which is the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia, and my chapter, which is in this cluster, the Arlington chapter. And as you can see from all of us here, we really are very passionate about this issue of heart disease. The Links Incorporated is an organization of over 16,000 women of African descent. We are in 292 chapters, 41 states, the District of Columbia, the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and the United Kingdom. And the issue of heart disease is something that we have taken on for probably almost 12 to 13 years, because it is an issue of such importance. And the very fact that you see all of these link system, my link members here gathered around this issue, tells you that it is really an issue that is of significance. We have a signature program, Heart Links, which means a signature program in our organization means that the issue, the problem is of such community prominence that all of our chapters engage. And what you see here is the solidarity of these amazing women who are engaging in the fight against heart disease, especially as it relates to our community and especially as it relates to Black women. Like you said, it is the #1 killer of Black women still now today.
So let me ask you, why is heart disease more prominent among women, within women, and what are the signs? Because I've been told that the signs are almost altogether different than those when heart disease appears in men.
Well, we know that heart disease is the #1 killer of women. We know that heart disease is the #1 killer of Black women. And I think that one of the reasons you see that is because a lot of our members, the women in our community, we really don't think that is the case. And in fact, they call it the silent killer. We do know that the symptoms of heart attack are very different in men than in women. You always hear about this clutching of the chest, this pain in your chest. And I know that that is the case, but sometimes for women, you see symptoms like fatigue, of fatigue that is long-standing, an ache in your back, maybe a symptom of heart disease or pain and pressure in your abdomen, shortness of breath and nausea, which is a little bit different from the symptoms that you typically hear in men, which is that pounding on the chest. And that can happen in women too, but the symptoms are different. And it's important for us to know that so that we know what we're looking for.
Absolutely. That's what makes it that silent killer, because it completely catches you off guard. So you were speaking about self-care in our communities. How closely related is having a healthy diet and a healthy heart?
Well, that is very closely related. First of all, I want to thank you. And I know that all of my Link sisters who are here on this call, we've all kind of become experts in this issue of heart disease, because one thing I can tell you about the Links, we walk it like we talk it. So all of the things that you see that we ask our communities and our families to do, we're trying to do ourselves. And it is truly an important issue, especially now, because in addition to a healthy diet, and I'm gonna get to that in a minute, I want to thank you for what you're cooking today. We know that stressors are a real issue too. And right here in this age of COVID, not only are we dealing with stressors, social stressors around COVID, the physiological impact of COVID is also exacerbating heart disease. And I don't want us to negate the social stressors, the racial stressors, which have been proven to also increase blood pressure, and which leads and manifests itself into heart disease. But there are certain things that you can do to help address heart disease and blood pressure and heart issues. And one of them is a healthy diet. And I'm so glad that that you're cooking plant-based, because that helps us reduce sodium, it helps us to reduce fat, and a lot of us have moved to plant-based diets. One of the reasons why I'm glad that you're doing that, some of us, that would be me, who are adequate cooks, non-plant-based, have become really bad cooks now, and we're moving to a plant-based diet. So thank you for what you're cooking today.
My pleasure. So, you brought up an interesting point about the stressors, the environmental, emotional, stressors that we as people of color face every day, the microaggressions, all of these things that contribute to when you come home at the end of the day sometimes, or when you go to have your meal, you just want comfort. And that food is that comfort. And so you're not thinking about the end result of what you're eating. You're just like, I just want to feel good. I just want, I want that 2-piece, or I want that, I want that drink, or I want that whatever it is that brings about comfort. And we kind of get stuck in that rut. And we, like I said, we're in the moment and we're not thinking long-term. And that's something that we need to make that shift. We need to recognize that actually comfort can come from eating healthy meals. When you're eating healthier, you're breathing stronger, you have more energy, it actually gives you more strength to deal with the day. So that's great. That's a great thing that plant-based eating does. But I always say, I'm plant-based. I just think that people need to eat more plant-based. I'm not a proponent of don't eat any meat at all, because I think it's kind of a big leap for some people. And you all are in the DMV. So you all, I know about the crab cakes and you've got such wonderful seafood there. I dare not touch that. So what I would encourage is to increase your plant-based meals. So let me get started, because we've got our tofu pressing over there. I have two pots going today. We'll see how this works.
Okay. We're all really excited to watch you cook, because we have a lot of physicians on this Zoom today, and they've been actually pushing healthier eating. But as you said, since we've been in this pandemic, I think that the pandemic weight gain is very, very real.
Oh, yes.
And we have all suffered from that, and it really is hard to get back into a healthy eating plan based on the isolation and where we are right now. So I'm glad to see that you're cooking here.
Absolutely, and you all live very busy lives. I know Link women are women of substance and women of responsibility, so it's not like you have days wide open to do things. So that's why this is a great dish. These are great dishes as well because they're easy to fix. So one of the things I'm doing to keep the oil consumption down, we are going to use some avocado oil non-stick spray. You can find this in Sprouts and Whole Foods. You can find it in your local grocer. Avocado oil or coconut oil are great sprays to use. Of course, you can use, the traditional pour oil, but I like this because it really controls the amount of oil. What ends up happening a lot of times, if we cut back the sugar, we're increasing the fat. Or if we're increasing the fat, we're increasing the sugar. So this is a way for us to keep it like right in the middle.
Okay.
So that's
we're taking notes. Avocado oil or coconut.
Avocado oil. And I shared a recipe, but with this dish, this is the kind of thing where you can make it as fussy and complicated as you want, or you can make it as simple as you want. I'm going with really fresh, almost like Italian flavors. We've got sun-dried tomatoes. We're gonna use some asparagus. We've got bell peppers, onions, some cremini mushrooms. I have baby spinach and I have kale. We're gonna use kale in one of our dishes. What's great about this is, you're having a hearty meal to start your day. I'm sure some of you have heard breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, dinner like a pauper. Our days sometimes don't lend to that being convenient, but if there's one thing I would encourage you to do, it's to get into the practice of having a hearty breakfast. It starts your day off, you get your nutrition in, and then later on the day, you end your day with like a great bowl of soup or a salad or something like that. So I'm gonna get started by putting some onion in both of these pans.
Okay.
And like I said, we're adding, this is, you build this dish as you want. You don't have to use onions. If you don't like onions, you don't have to. If you have a certain type of onion you like to use that. There's no perfect recipe here.
Okay.
Let me just kick this up a notch. So we're gonna saute those. While I'm sauteing those, I am going to, for one of the dishes, we're using chickpeas, and we're gonna break them down a little bit because we want our flavor to get all in there. One of the things that I am a proponent for in cooking is building layers of flavor. And when you do that using herbs and, like onions and garlic and things like that, you don't require as much salt. So we're being conscious about how we're building these layers of flavor. And for me, salt or seasoning is just kind of like the finishing touch, but it's not an integral part of the dish.
Okay.
So I have here 2 cans of chickpeas. They are chickpeas that were in a can that is non-BPA. I'm bringing that up because bisphenol A it's like a plastic-like material that leaches into your food and can create havoc in your body. So we want to make sure if we use canned foods that the can says non-BPA. So I'm going to put these in hope you can see that, into my food processor. And I'm just going to pulse these to break them down. I don't want to make them mushy.
Okay.
I want them to still have texture. So we're just going to pulse them a few times. Okay, that ought to do it. Dr. Jeffries Leonard, let's ask you some more questions. What are some of the suggestions you have for that can help people adopt a healthier lifestyle? I know cooking is one component, but what are the other components that we would address?
Well, I think that you want to take things in baby steps. Certainly, we want to start with doing some exercise, and like you said, the cooking is one piece, and exercising. We don't even want to look at it in terms of steps, but just give a block of time. Maybe walking 15 minutes a day, and then maybe leading up to 30 minutes a day, or just walking or exercising around your house. Some other things that you can do is starting to de-stress in terms of meditation. That's always a great, that's very important actually, I think, especially right now where we are in this time and in this place. So meditation, there are a lot of great meditation apps that you can use that kind of guide you through that if you're very new to meditation. And just starting to to determine, you know, those things that are working for you. The other thing that I would say, it's always important to go to the doctor to make sure that you have a baseline understanding of what your health looks like. Sometimes we have to be on medication, but you don't have to stay on medication. You can be on medication, and depending on how you change your lifestyle, your doctor can take you off. And I know I have a lot of our Links members on here who can attest to that, because they either are physicians, or they work within, you know, this space to help us move into this healthy lifestyle direction. So there are a lot of things that we can do that are just little steps that make things better in terms of our healthier lifestyle. But I think the main things that we have to look at is eating better. That's the first thing. And then exercising, moving. I know that with our HeartLink signature program, it's also tied to our healthy living and physical fitness and program. And we really are moving away from the term exercise. I hear our chairs in my head, but really starting to move and move more. You can just walk in front of the TV or get on your exercise bike in front of the television. So there are a couple of things that are easy first steps to take.
Yeah, there are. And, you know, because we have been discouraged from, you know, getting out and interacting with people, it's great to get up first thing in the morning and just fill your lungs with that fresh air and go on a nice brisk walk. Because some of us have been working from home for so long. My husband, for example, his company, they shut down all their leases, so he's home. So, you know, it's like Groundhog's Day for him. Every day he wakes up and he does the same thing. So it's great to get out there in the morning and get that brisk walk in, fill up your lungs, and then start your day.
We're so connected now virtually because of the pandemic. It makes it easier for us to have buddies when we do walking, and have our buddy partners to walk with, or even to cook with. So I think that a lot of us will be now trying to replicate these recipes that you're using, because even if we've not all moved all the way to a plant-based diet, a lot of us are, like you said, taking out meat for several times during the week and having meatless meals. So it allows us to be able to connect virtually and do these things like cooking, walking, meditating, de-stressing in different ways. And self-care, as you said, is very important right now.
Very important, very important. So what I've done, I have the onions in, I've added the bell peppers, I've added mushrooms, and I've added asparagus. You know, asparagus takes a little bit more time to cook. I am somebody, I don't like mushy food. I like food with texture. So if you don't like really crisp veggies, just let it cook a little longer.
Okay.
Let this cook a little bit through here.
Is there a rubric that you would like to provide to us? So if we're moving to plant-based, how do we make sure we're getting enough of our proteins and our other necessary nutrients every day?
I'm glad you asked that. Now that is probably the number one question that people ask when they start looking at a plant-based diet. The first thing I will tell you is that literally every vegetable has some level of protein in it, okay? So you will have to eat more, but you can definitely get it in. And honestly, I've never known anybody to have a protein deficiency. Your body needs more protein when you're doing like really strenuous exercise. So what I would suggest, again, is in the morning, you have something that is just nutrient dense, like this dish, because tofu is 9 grams of protein per serving. It's low calorie, it's low fat, it's low carb, and it's very filling. And the way we're preparing it, we're making it really hearty with veggies. That's a great way of doing it. Chickpeas, lentils, nuts. There's so many things in the plant world that give you a good amount of protein. You just have to look for it. Okay, so these are almost done. I'm gonna add some sun-dried tomatoes. I love cooking with sun-dried tomatoes because they have a real depth of flavor. They have lycopene, which is good for us as well. And these have been marinated and packed in olive oil and Italian herbs. So it has a really beautiful flavor to it. So you're adding a little bit of oil, but not much. Remember, we just used the spray. So we can splurge a little bit with that. This is smelling lovely. I wish you ladies could smell this.
I wish we could too. It looks like it's coming together beautifully.
So here's a question that I wanted to ask. Not only is Kamala Harris an HBCU grad, not only is she an AKA, she is a link, which is amazing. It's just awesome that someone like her is representing so many different interests in our community. What do you hope to see coming from this administration?
Well, first of all, we are all so proud, so proud. I think you could feel the collective pride from our members here on this Zoom. We're just so proud of her for all of her accomplishments and for making history in this way and just being a woman of color. I mean, we are just over the moon with pride about her historic first. We are pleased that she is there. We are pleased that this administration is there because there's so many things that impact our communities that have to be addressed from a policy perspective. We know that, the Links Incorporated, as you said, we are an organization based on friendship and service. And as an organization, we log over 1 million service hours every year in our communities. But we know that our work, and we have very robust legislative agendas, but our work is really tied to not only impacting the community, but really advocating for those policies that are going to be helpful to our communities. So right now we're looking at the COVID vaccine, where African Americans are disproportionately lower in getting the vaccines, and that's for a whole lot of reasons. We are disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. We have issues of access. We have issues of care. We have issues of pay. Everything that can impact a community impacts the African American community or the communities of African descent. And our hope for this administration is that they pay attention to those things and that they really look at things from an economic, from a health, from an educational standpoint that are going to be good for us, because we know that when the Black community thrives, everybody thrives.
Correct.
And that is why we are so very determined to ensure that our voices are heard. We were very we worked very hard to make sure that people got to the polls, because regardless of what side you sit on, it is important for your voice to be heard through your vote. We worked very hard as an organization on that, and I think that a lot of what you see was the results of our efforts. We worked very hard to make sure that communities of color completed the census. So we really are right there on that legislative policy position stance for this administration, every administration. But we do think that this administration, as opposed to the last one, will hear us.
So, you brought up an interesting point. We are kind of in a perfect storm as a people, in that we have a level of distrust when it comes to medicine and how it impacts us as a people. And we have overwhelmingly been affected by COVID, and now the vaccine is here and people have misgivings about that. Any thoughts on, I know this is not heart disease, but again, you have your hand all over things in healthcare.
Well, the thing about the vaccine, the thing about COVID, we're learning more and more about COVID every day and how it impacts us from a health perspective. And what we're learning is that there are some health issues that are disproportionately impacted by COVID. Diabetes, which healthy lifestyle impacts, heart disease, a healthy lifestyle impacts. And so what we understand is that when you're at risk because you have these diseases, then certainly it affects you differently, and it affects you more severely than other healthier individuals. And that doesn't mean that we don't see the stories about a perfectly healthy person who is asymptomatic today is on a ventilator tomorrow. We know that those are things that are the case too. But broadly, collectively, we know that these are persons who are at high risk. And so to be able to get vaccinated, the first thing really does help protect those people who are at high risk, which are disproportionately represented in our communities. We have good reason to be very suspicious of medication because of our historical trauma as it relates to Black people in the Tuskegee experiment, Henrietta Lacks. All of these things are part of our history. Not only that, but we had the honor of having Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett on one of our town halls, and some other brilliant researchers who talked about the fact that even as slaves, our physicians practiced on their African slaves. And so of course we are wary, but what we do know is that as a community of leaders, the Links Incorporated, other organizations have been campaigning, and I use that term not from a voting standpoint, but we've really been putting the message out there that it's important to take this vaccine, because we want to make sure that our community is here to continue to raise your voice in voting and to continue to make the issues that are of importance to us known. And so, you know, we've got lots of community leaders who've taken the vaccine. I think a lot of our members on this this cooking show, your show today, have taken the vaccine. How many of you all have had your vaccine so far? See, we are the ambassadors for our communities, because we know that the science is there that says, and we know that the FDA has put a lot of work into this. We feel better because we have researchers of color there, and we have Black leaders who have taken it. But now we become the ambassadors after we've taken it, because our communities just want to know, do you think it's safe? Will you take it? And so it's important for us to really kind of help move past that so that we can be protected and be here to continue the work that we have to do.
Yeah, it's there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on, and you're correct. It's understandable that there is some suspicion, that there is some hesitation, but we should then move forward into investigating, into learning more instead of just dismissing things, because that will hurt us in the end. We have been disproportionately affected by this virus. As you said, the pre-existing conditions that our people suffer from, which are by and large created by what we eat. So again, the healthful conversation comes in. So there are different entry points into this discussion, but they all must be had. And you all, as women of influence, are able to really make that difference. So I applaud you for that. So we have added the kale to one pan, we've added the spinach to one pan, and now I'm going to take the chickpea and I'm going to add it to the one with the spinach. So this chickpea is taking the place of an egg.
Okay.
It's taking the place of an egg, and we've got great protein there.
Okay.
So after you have cooked your veggies, the last thing you're going to do is you're going to add in your chickpea.
Okay.
And we're just going to allow this to warm through. And then I'm going to use a little bit of my seasoning that I've created. I'm happy to share it with you all.
Oh, we definitely want your seasoning, yes.
We're going to add it to it. It really gives an egg-like flavor to it. What's great about it, not only does it give flavor, but it has real great nutritional properties as well, because it has turmeric, which curcumin, it's great for, it's anti-cancer, it's anti-inflammatory, antioxidant. It's one of these super nutrients that people are touting. And so it includes that in there. So not only does it taste great, but it's good for you as well. So we have that one going. And now I'm going to add the tofu that was pressed. And if you were here, you would be able to feel that there's a lot of liquid in this towel. So all that liquid has been pulled out. Now, if you were using this tofu in another way, what you would do at this point, you would cut it up and you would use your marinade and let it sit in it for at least 30 minutes or overnight. It makes your tofu taste wonderful. But since we're doing a scramble, we're just gonna crumble this over our veggies.
Okay. So we're just we're so pleased to be here. Now, how did you become a plant-based chef, and what was your journey to a plant-based diet?
Well, I became a plant-based chef because I saw people in my family dying from their eating habits. Mm-hmm. I had a grandfather who I never even met. He died at 45 from a diabetic stroke. Oh. My family is actually from the islands, and you know, food was a pastime. Mm-hmm. Food was a pastime. And my mother passed away from cancer, and my grandmother passed away from cancer, and their diets really just were not diets that contributed to their health. They contributed to compounding health issues. And so I decided I loved cooking, but I didn't want my cooking to be so good that it took somebody to their grave. I wanted it to be something that really promoted an abundant life. So that's what made me go into plant-based cooking. And personally, I'm somebody I've been like a yo-yo with my diet, with how I eat. And so I wanted to figure out how to incorporate better ways of eating for myself. And I love it. I'm very happy. There's so many different ways to incorporate plant-based cooking into your diet. Being somebody from having a father who is African and a mother who is West Indian, I have discovered so many traditional foods that are great for us and that contribute to our health. Let's talk about okra, for example. Okra is something that is part of the African American and the African tradition. Okra is wonderful if you have diabetes or if you have high blood pressure. It's mucilaginous, that's the word that's used, and it keeps your insulin levels from spiking when you eat mucilaginous food. So if you don't like okra, a lot of people don't like okra. This may seem very unconventional, but one thing that you can do is you can use fresh okra pods in your smoothie in the morning. You won't taste it. You'll never even know it's in there. You drop about 3 or 4 pods in there with some blueberries and your almond milk, and you know, you won't even taste it, but you get the benefits from it. So that's a great.
No, because I know for me, I love okra. Fried okra. Okay. Okay. So now I have a new way to eat okra. I think I was probably the last holdout trying to find every churches around so I could go make sure I got some fried okra for them and my mom.
Yeah, I love okra as well. I love okra as well. From my mother's country, there's a dish where they cook it with rice and meat and beans, and it's great. So there are so many things in our traditional diet that actually are superfoods and things like that. And once I started discovering what we already had as a people, it excited me to share this message with other people of the African diaspora, but people outside of it as well, of what we had to offer, because I truly believe that world cuisine, by and large, has been influenced by people of color. Because who were in the kitchens? The enslaved in the kitchens were creating these cuisines, and people took it and went somewhere else with it, but we are the ones who started it. And so I celebrate the culinary majesty and legacy of Africa through a plant-based lens. Okay, ladies, sorry.
I was just gonna ask you if you could help us move the people in our lives to slowly moving to plant-based diets. How do we do that?
You know, you can do a Meatless Monday, make it fun. Do a Meatless Monday. And if you really think about it, I'm sure all of you ladies already have dishes that are plant-based, where there's no meat in it. But we don't look at it that way. It's almost like we feel like we have to put effort into creating something plant-based, but there's so many soups. Soups quite often are plant-based. If you use a chicken stock, just switch out to a vegetable stock. If you fix jambalaya, just don't use the shrimp. I'm sorry, that's not a good that's not a good example. But I do make scallops from trumpet mushrooms. There are so many little different things. I would love to come back with you ladies apart from this and do some cooking with you. There's so many little different things that you can do, but I would say a meatless Monday. If you're used to having, you know, turkey sausage for breakfast and a sandwich or a salad with a chicken breast for lunch and something else with meat protein for dinner, just take it. Just in the morning, just don't have your turkey sausage. Just don't do it, you know? Slowly but surely. I wouldn't take a big leap. I would take baby steps. And that's the way I would do it. So we have got these two things are ready to go. I'm just going to use now a little bit of my Tofu Scramble magic. And we're just going to sprinkle it across the top. I'm probably going to use like a teaspoon and a half. So not only does this add color to your tofu, but it actually has an eggy flavor. One of the ingredients in here is something called kala namak. And kala namak is an Indian seasoning it's called black salt. That's what it actually translates to. And it kind of has a sulfurish type of flavor and quality to it.
Mm. Chef Cynthia, can you tell us what inspired you to develop your magic seasoning?
Well, you know, again, I am somebody who had my share of bad vegan food and bad vegetarian food. And I said, you know, if they just did this, it would taste so much better. And so in encouraging people to try this out, I wanted to provide something that made it a pleasant experience instead of feeling like punishment. Have you ever eaten something and it feels like punishment? I don't want that to be the case, because then you're not likely to do it again. So that's what was behind me creating this line of spices, but this one in particular, because I think tofu is one of the dishes that is the worst consistently, no matter where you go. And so this basically is a way to capture the best flavors and in a bottle and sprinkle it on top of your food. And that's what I believe I've created. Okay, ladies. So I think we're done. And now we are going to create a pretty plate, which is also key to eating healthier. You know, you want a beautiful plate. People eat with their eyes as well as obviously with their mouths. And I'm a big proponent of making food beautiful. So let me get some things out the way.
Now, Chef Cynthia, this is Michelle Bailey. Where is there a cookbook or other ways that we can hear more about your fabulous recipes?
Yes, there is a cookbook. My website is afkavefoods.com, which is AFCAVE foods.com. And my spices are available there, as well as a digital cookbook. I haven't quite graduated to a hard copy yet, but a digital cookbook is there.
Okay, so that is wonderful. So I see that at the on the screen here in the live chat. So thank you so much for that.
My pleasure.
I think that's something that will help all of us as we move to a healthier lifestyle with plant-based meals. I know my son, when he turned 18, he told us he was going to be a vegetarian. And
Wow.
My cooking was really, I mean, I was lacking, I have to say. So anytime we can get recipes that are appetizing and healthy, that is always such a plus for us.
And you know what? A lot of times it's just being thoughtful. It's not really complicated. I think this may look more complicated than it is. One of the things that I love, especially during the winter season, are soups. Soups are some of the easiest things to make. You just need broth. You need some aromatics like thyme, rosemary, sage. You can put some, you know, sweet potatoes in there. or regular potatoes, and you let it come to a simmer, it's soft, drop it in your blender, blend it, and you've got this creamy, luscious soup. And I love soups because they're so satiating. And as we talked about, you know, eating a king in the morning, a prince for lunch, and a pauper for dinner, it's the kind of thing that really holds you over. And you can monitor the salt content, you can monitor the fat content. So it's not complicated, you just have to be thoughtful about it. And put aside a few hours if you can. Your health is important. Once it's gone, it's really hard to get it back to where you would like it to be or where it needs to be. So we need to be stewards of our body and taking the time, taking those few hours to plan and prepare. There's a lot that we can do to stave off disease and issues down the line, being proactive. So I'm gonna plate this.
Chef Cynthia, quick question for you. So are you a fan of some of these meat substitutes like the Beyond or?
That's a great question. That's a great question. So I believe, I subscribe to the belief that we should eat foods as close to their natural state as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you do, your body takes what it needs from it and gets rid of the rest. What tends to happen when people adopt a plant-based lifestyle is they're taken in by all of these packaged foods and all these prepared things. Oh, I usually eat bacon, well, I'll eat vegan bacon. I usually eat burgers, I'll eat vegan burgers. And I'll admit some of them taste pretty good, but if you look at them, quite often they're heavy with fat. They're heavy with salt. They're processed foods. A lot of times you can't, the ingredients, you don't even know what they are. I mean, they're getting better. It's getting better. But I would say that that is something that you should eat every once in a while. It should not become a substitute every day. You know, we need to learn to fall back in love with fruit and vegetables. Our palates can be retrained. I've learned that personally. We as a people, not even we as a people, Americans by and large, we are used to foods that are overly salty and overly sweet.
Right.
The snack food industry, all of these things are created in such a way to create addictions.
Sure.
So fall in love with mandarins, those small mandarins. Fall in love, like put a little pack of nuts in your purse and carry it with you. When you get hungry, that handful of nuts will take off that edge. Don't take a bag, take a little, you know, a little individual. But there are things that we can do to fight our hunger during the day that are not high in calorie and high in fat. But getting back to what you're saying, I think that some of those things are great, like Slutty Vegan. I had that.
One of my favorites.
It was yummy, delicious, running down my arms. But it's something that you need to have it's still a treat. It's better than a Whopper, but it's not best.
Mm-hmm.
We need to move towards what's best for our bodies.
Thank you. Yeah.
Chef Cynthia, I have a question also. As we prepare for being in the workplace again, how can we keep plant-based foods very accessible? Do you keep some items in your purse when you're on the run? And if so, can you share with us what they are?
So yeah, as I just shared, one of the things, if you go to Trader Joe's or you go to most grocery stores, will have individual packets of nuts or trail mix and things like that. Not the ones with M&Ms or things like that, but the ones that are like, you know, cranberries or raisins and things like that. Pumpkin seeds, things like that. Get those individual packets. They're around 180 calories, maybe about, 12 grams of fat or so per package. Put a couple of those in your purse. Get little mandarin oranges. As I was saying, fall back in love with natural flavors. We can retrain our palate. Keep an apple or cut up some fruit in the morning and put it in a Tupperware, and take it with you to work. There's some great there's some great drinks out there that are like a beet and apple and things like that. You can pick those things up. Those are the types of things that I would drink and eat, as opposed to grabbing that bag of Doritos, or, you know, or there's just so many things out there. Even a lot of the things that are promoted as healthy, as I said, they're sugar and fat laden. So also get into the habit of reading labels. Read labels. As I was saying earlier on, typically if it's low fat, trust me, it's high sugar. If it's if it's low sugar, trust me, it's high fat. Now, I don't want to vilify fat, but we need to be conscious of what we're taking in.
Thank you.
So, Link Cynthia,
Excuse me?
I was wondering if, I know that all of your recipes are vegan, but I was wondering, like for your celebrities, do you always cook vegan?
Absolutely not. The funny thing about that is, when you cook for celebrity, you pretty much have to be able to cook whatever they want. I have been fortunate that the celebrities that I cook for are very disciplined eaters. And so they don't eat things like pork. They don't eat things like red meat. So it's basically like turkey and chicken. They'll eat some seafood, but you have to be able to cook everything. But that has not been my experience. And they're pretty open to whatever you prepare, as long as it's tasty.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yes.
Hi, Chef Cynthia. This is Dolores. I have a question. What part of the world are you based out of, and do you do DMV events?
I live in Tampa, Florida, I live in Wesley Chapel, just north of Tampa, Florida. I actually have done events in DC, and I would be happy to do another one. I have done, private dinners and things like that. I have done group classes, group cooking classes in person. I've done all of that, so yes.
Great, thank you.
So we have our tofu scramble here. And here's another thing. This, for example, if you wanted to do this and you wanted to have your turkey sausage with that, that's perfectly fine. If you wanted to do, a couple of eggs over easy or something like that with this, that's perfectly fine. This is just giving you an option that is a plant-based dish. So we have our tofu scramble here. I'm gonna put a couple of tomatoes on this plate. We're gonna do some cucumber. The reason I like to add things like this is they are low calorie, but they're filling. These are vegetables that are very high water content. And that's one of the things that we want to try to do too, is to take in more water. And so you can get your water in a non-traditional way. It doesn't have to be through glasses of water. It can be through what you eat. And there are quite a few things that are out there that are high in water content.
So Cynthia, it looks delicious.
Thank you.
Chef Cynthia, can I add, this is Kelly Bolden. I wanted to ask a question that's a little bit sort of a piggyback on one that you had earlier. When we talk about, one of the things I found when I was starting to try to eat healthier is that it's very expensive to eat healthy. It's much easier to go to the store and pick up the snack pack of, unhealthy stuff, which a lot of people in our community, that's one of the reasons why I think we have so much difficulty. So if you were to say, okay, here's maybe the 5 staples that you would say go to the grocery store that aren't going to break the bank to be able to kind of transition to that plant-based diet, what would those be?
Well, I would say beans. Instapots are all the rage, so they've made cooking beans and things like that so much easier, and it's inexpensive. You can buy them in bulk. Beans are one of them. Grains, there are so many different types of grains out there. I typically go to Costco to buy my grains because they have great prices on them. Quinoa. Quinoa is great because you can have quinoa in the morning like a porridge. You can have quinoa in place of rice in a stir fry. You can use quinoa in a loaf, a lentil loaf. You can add quinoa to it. And so then you've got that protein and nutrition from both the lentils and the quinoa. So I would do things like that. I would get beans, I would do quinoa. there's co-ops that you can go to where you can get fruit and veggies cheaper. Sweet potatoes are great. I actually think that if we do the research, if we just stay up on sales and things that are going on, I really don't think that eating plant-based is more expensive. I really don't. I think that meat can be, I mean, I know seafood definitely is more expensive. And then even if some things are more expensive, you're gonna pay one way or the other. So do you wanna pay up front and, you know, do you want to kind of be proactive in keeping things out of the way by purchasing these foods? Or do you want to, in the end, have to deal with it with medical care and increased healthcare bills? So the way I look at it is, it's where our value is. And we need to be more cognizant of what we are eating, because I say this quite often, the FDA does not care about your health. Because it is on the shelves in the grocery store does not remotely mean that it's healthy or that it's good for you. So we have to take that back into our own hands. We have to be very diligent and, you know, make sure that what we are eating and what we're giving to our families are what's best for us and them.
Hi, Cynthia. This is Jackie Wills. A quick question. A couple of years ago, I gave up eating flour and sugar. And what I realized, even though the first few weeks were difficult, but I realized that the longer that I don't eat it, then I don't crave it at all. And I wondered if you found that as you know.
Absolutely. Interesting that you said flour and sugar, because white flour, white rice, white potatoes, all of those things, our body digests them in a certain way. They basically break down to sugars, carbs. And most of us are addicted to sugar and we don't even know it. Sugar is in so many things. And I'm sure once you decided to stop eating sugar, you were surprised with how many things had sugar in it.
Absolutely. Almost everything on the shelf.
Yeah. So, you know, a girlfriend of mine did that, and she actually went through like the shakes. Like she really she had to come down off of this sugar addiction. Yes, over time it gets better, and you will start to, when I was talking about retraining your palate, that is one of the ways that it happens. When you start to experience sugar in its natural state again, you will have a totally different appreciation for it. People eat things like Oreos, and I laugh because I said, Oreos don't taste like chocolate, but they're advertised as like this chocolate cream cookie. It doesn't taste like that. You have been conditioned to believe that that's what chocolate is supposed to taste like. So that when we truly eat pure chocolate, it's kind of like, ooh, what is this? We need to get back to that. That's the goal. Congratulations on being able to do that. I haven't been able to do that. You are inspirational.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, it's difficult because, again, for so many of us, food is associated with fuzzy feelings, you know? Food is the thing that reminds us of holidays and our mom and that special thing we used to have at Sunday dinner. It's associated with so many emotions that it's a real process of learning to eat for health and not for emotion.
Chef Cynthia, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Hi, this is Link Zanithia again. A question about estrogen and tofu. What do you know about that, and what concerns should we raise about it or not be as concerned about with estrogen and tofu?
Excellent question. So there is a bit of a misnomer when it comes to estrogen and tofu. There is an estrogen, but it is a plant-based estrogen, and your body does not process it like it does natural estrogen in your body. There are two different receptors, and I'm going to look at a note so the ERA receptor, that is the one that increases the risk of heart attack, stroke, and breast cancer. But the the phytoestrogen from tofu does not attach to that. It attaches to the ERB receptor, and that receptor fights cancer. That receptor it protects us from cardiovascular disease and DNA damage. So they're different. The study was based on mice, and mice process estrogen differently than we do. And what ended up happening was these mice started to grow breasts. And that's where all of the concern came from. But later on, it was discovered we don't process estrogen like they do. And it is a plant-based estrogen, and it attaches to different receptors. So it is not, it doesn't create the concern that we had. But if it's something that you still are not comfortable with eating, either limit it or do something like this chickpea scramble in place of it.
Okay, thank you.
Chef Cynthia, I have a question. You know, every time we decide to get healthy, we think we should move to smoothies or green drinks. And very often I'll see, you know, we put a lot of fruit in there, and then sometimes you hear, well, that's way too much sugar. You're putting way too much sugar. Can you tell us how to build the perfect smoothie or green drink? Because you're right, we're used to things tasting a certain way, and we may not be making something as healthy as we think we are.
Yes. So one of the best ways to create a smoothie that is not high in sugar or high in calories is to use berries. That's a great thing. And berries are antioxidants. So you're getting a double punch there. I like to buy frozen berries. I get a big package, typically from Costco. And what's great about them is they add that icy creaminess as well when I'm making it. Use greens, like this is not traditional, but you know, you can use kale. You can use kale. You can offset that kale with a ripe banana and those berries. One of the keys to adding sweetness to smoothies and things like that are using something like a ripe banana. And when I say ripe, it has to be spotted. It may be something that you wouldn't want to eat on its own, but it's best in your smoothie. Okra, we talked about the okra, sneaking that okra in there. You can add some great nut butter in there. You just need to measure. That's something that I would also suggest that you do. Measure, 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 because we always underestimate how much we've used of something, especially when we like it. I know. So make sure that you measure. If it says 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, 2 tablespoons of peanut butter are not 2 heaping spoons of this. Get a measuring spoons and measuring cups. You would be surprised what you actually take in when you're not being vigilant about that. So smoothies, things like berries. Google, figure out which fruits are low in calories. Use those things, load up on those things, and use less of the things that are higher, like a banana is higher in calorie and higher in sugars. So I would use one of those or half of one of those, and then load up on the berries and things like that. Throw some spinach in there. Use some almond milk or something like that. One of the milks that I absolutely love that is really hot on the market now is oat milk. I love oat milk. Is so incredibly creamy. To me, it tastes like whole milk. Maybe I'm being a bit generous, but I think it's so good. I would encourage you to try out different milks and things like that in your smoothies until you get that perfect combination. And what you can do, if you're in want of time, take some Ziploc bags and make your little smoothie mix. And you have your, your cup of berries in there, and you have your half of your banana in there, and your pods of okra, and you zip it and you put it in your freezer. So in the morning when you're getting ready to run out the door, you drop that in your blender with your cup of milk, run it for 30, 45 seconds, put it in your cup, and you're out the door.
Okay.
So that's a suggestion I would make as well.
Great, thank you. Thank you for
Chef
that.
Cynthia.
Cynthia, I was wondering how you feel about using frozen vegetables, say like maybe some frozen spinach in those dishes that you prepared.
I think frozen vegetables are fine. I would avoid canned, but I think frozen vegetables are fine. I think it's a great shortcut. You actually get probably, for example, with spinach, you're gonna get a lot more for your money when you do that because, you know, spinach cooks down to nothing. So I love frozen spinach. I think it's great to use in dishes like this. It's great to use as a, you know, you can use as a dip. You know, you add some little, you could add a creamy or silken tofu to that and a little bit of garlic powder and seasonings and you've got a great dip. So I think that frozen vegetables are fine. Just avoid canned.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're lovely, by the way. I love your glasses.
Thank you.
So we have our two dishes plated here. So this is our tofu. And we did some oven, can you see that? Some oven roasted potatoes there. Of course, you could swap out, these are some potatoes that I cut up, I tossed them with a little bit of avocado oil, a little bit of salt and pepper. You could use some crushed garlic. I put it in the oven at 350 for about 30 minutes. You could also do sweet potatoes if you wanted to, just cut them up the same way. And then we have our other really, this one looks much heartier because we've got our, you know, our whole grain toast and our avocado. But if you eat something like this in the morning, you're good. You're going to be good for the day. You know?
Beautiful.
And the tofu is great too. If you want to do something a little more like a Mexican breakfast, you could put this in a corn tortilla. You can use a little bit of salsa on top of it, sprinkle a little bit of vegan cheese or regular cheese if you want to on top of that. It's great like that. You can make a breakfast burrito. So you could take this on the go with you. Just get a flour tortilla, put this in the center. You can chop up your tomatoes, your avocado, roll it up, out the door. Easy. So there's so many different ways that you can actually use this instead of like this traditional plated way. It's just a great option to have.
Chef Cynthia,
Yes.
This is Jackie. And I was wondering about your seasoning and what was in it, and does it go well on all of your dishes? And also the second question is if you have a cookbook for those of us who need to follow directions.
So I do have a cookbook. It is on AFCAVEfoods.com. I have a line of spices. The one I use today is the Tofu Scramble Magic. Interestingly enough, I've had people tell me that they've used this on real eggs. They've used it on potato salad. And somebody told me they use it on chicken and dumplings, which I didn't quite get, but hey, whatever works for you works for me. So I have this one, and then I have a maple jerk syrup that I've come out with, where if you are I'm trying to tell you, if you are somebody who likes chicken and waffles and things like that, or you just like that sweet, spicy, savory thing, it is delicious. So that's another thing I have. Then I have a Diaspora chili blend, which is kind of like an African version of curry. It's, if you are a Louisiana heritage, you will love it. It is spicy. It's floral. It has great flavors. And then I also have a curry that pays homage to my my mother's side. That, you know, the Caribbean. You think of the Caribbean and West Indies, you think of curry. So those are the 4 that I have now. But this is particularly good for breakfast dishes, and so that's why we used it today.
I think we want all of those.
Oh, well, I'll be happy to try them with you. So,
Yeah, they are wonderful.
We will share lunch with you.
Yes.
But thank you so much for your time. You have been generous with your afternoon. Again, I know that Link ladies are ladies of responsibility and substance, and you don't have a lot of free time. So I appreciate you taking the time with me this afternoon. And as I mentioned earlier, I would love to come to to do something with you all apart from this and show you how to maybe veganize some of those things like macaroni and cheese. How can we do a really good creamy macaroni and cheese? How can we do a plant-based jambalaya? Is that possible? I think it is. There are quite a few things, but thank you so much, President Jeffries Leonard, for taking the time. Thank you, lovely ladies of the 13 DMV chapters of the Links Incorporated. And I hope to see you again. I hope you all have a wonderful week. We're at the beginning of the week, and I hope to see you again. Thank you for joining us on Culinary and Conversations.
Thank
This
you.
has been wonderful. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Madam President, as well. It's amazing.
President.
This has been wonderful. We are so pleased. We are so honored that we were able to spend this time with you. And this has been a wonderful step for us in terms of moving to a healthier lifestyle. And you will hear from us. We will have you back to do some other things.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.